Good morning, world.
Good morning.
So today we're going to discuss something that's really been going on for centuries, probably millennia. I'm sure you've seen it, but the mainstream media doesn't really cover it in totality. They can't ignore it now, and of course we're talking about the conflict going on in the Middle East.
That's why we're here. Stay tuned. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. You've been watching the news, whether the news on the right, the left, down the middle, you've probably seen some form of coverage of what's going on in the Middle East.
Before we get too deep into that, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, ring that bell, and share our videos with everyone you know. And just real quick, if you want to get one of these fancy Cedric and Brian caps, right up here, C&B 10, that 10 means you get 10% off. So make sure you get your hats, your tank tops, any other Cedric and Brian gear that you want.
Before we get into what the bulk of our topic today is about just pure anti-Semitic attacks that's going on. So attacks just based on people, in some cases, not what they look like. Obviously, we talk about hate crimes against black people. Obviously, you can just look and see if somebody's black or white or Asian. But when it comes to the attacks, the anti-Semitic attacks, they actually had to go out of their way and ask people, or if you're like Ben Shapiro, if you've got a yarmulke on, then those people are getting attacked.
This is great. I love this vibe between Brian and I, because if you guys have watched our videos in the past, usually when it's something involving the black community, I usually take the lead. Brian, if you guys don't know, he's said before that his mother was Jewish, so I kind of take the lead on this one, but I will add things as I see fit.
You know, halfway around the world, again, nothing that's going on specifically in the United States, like we don't have enough problems here. Hamas, who is a terrorist organization, launched over 1,000 rockets into Israel, just indiscriminately. In fact, I think they had one of the leaders said they just look on Google Earth and pick their targets. Okay, right. So they're not picking their targets because they know there's a general there or there's head of the state. A lot of times it's towards schools,
right,
and things like that.
And it's pretty incredible. If you imagine, it's like 3,000 missiles over the span of 7 days, which if you do the math, it's like 428 missiles a day. I mean, can you imagine that, whatever town or city you live in, to have 428 missiles just over your head as you look up?
Yeah, and then when you look at the media coverage, they try to make this moral equivalency. In fact, I'm going to show you in a minute, they talk about the deaths happening in Gaza or Palestine. They don't talk about the other deaths.
Right. But
what they really don't talk about is, like he just said, what happened is all of these missiles were coming, these rockets were going to Israel like a week ago. Thank God Israel has what's called the Iron Dome. We talked about that briefly, but it was basically they take these rockets out of the air.
Right.
But then after that, they retaliated. They tried to go, and you have to, when you're in a fight, you have to dissuade the person from to come after you.
Right.
So you can't just play defense the whole time, right?
Right, exactly. And I was talking to Brian about this analogy I'm going to use right now, and it may be fitting, it may not be, but I thought it was pretty fitting. Let's say that I had some type of altercation with Mike Tyson, and for some unknown reason beyond me, I would go at Mike Tyson and attack him. Now, even at his age, he could pummel me to death, but I don't have a right to then say, oh my goodness, he's bigger, he's stronger, he has more at his disposal, he has more training. The mere fact that I attacked him gives him every right to defend himself and beat me to a pulp. And what Brian is saying is, and I could just been really stupid, which is what we're seeing going on with Israel and Palestine.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Israel didn't even do that.
Right.
They didn't beat you to a pulp.
Right.
They strategically went and said, let's take out certain things. So that would be like Mike Tyson taking and putting your arm behind your back.
Right.
So you can't still keep wailing punches on him.
Right.
And he may break your arm while he does that. But is it his fault
to
keep you from punching him?
Not at all.
That's more analogous, I think.
Right.
I mean, I like the Mike Tyson things. But yeah, Mike Tyson didn't beat the crap out of you. He was trying to keep you from beating him up, and he may have broke your arm.
Right.
That's what Israel did. They're trying to keep these rockets from coming over, and it's war. and it's horrible and it's terrible what's going on both sides, but you can't make a moral equivalent because you got to remember the people throwing the bombs explicitly said, and this has been going on for decades, that they want the destruction of Israel. They don't think that Israel should exist. Israel has to defend itself, just like we would defend ourselves if somebody sent a bunch of missiles towards us.
Absolutely.
And you retaliate so they don't do it again.
Well, the media's doing a good job of saying that the kids are being killed, the kids are being attacked. If I go back to the Mike Tyson analogy, it'd be like if I went to his home and if he was a good father, he would tell his kids to stay in the house. I'm up front. I will lead the charge. I'll defend you. While I, on the other hand, take my 3 kids and put them in front of me, saying, now I'll fight you, and you got to come through my kids to do it.
Go watch some of the stuff that Ben Shapiro has been posting over this past week. The Israelis actually warned one of the buildings, said, get all your people out of here, we're going to bomb it.
Yes.
So he warned them, they warned them, and they were getting blowback because the people in Hamas or whoever it was in those buildings didn't want to clear the people because they use people, civilians, as shields. That's the reason they launch attacks. They've been doing this for decades. They launch their attacks from civilian areas so that they can get the world press to condemn Israel when they retaliate.
And I forget the name of it, but Israel will send what's known as a warning bomb. It shakes the roof and shakes everything. It's like,
to make sure people get out.
Okay, you need to get out. If you choose to stay, now it's on you. But I mean, that's probably the most kindest way to have war that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's like, we're giving you a chance to get out. It's up to you.
So I want to play something. This is from the mainstream media. This was, I don't know if it was ABC, CBS, but just take a look at what we have just told you, and then here's what you hear on the news.
Now, this protest comes as tensions escalate there in the Middle East. Airstrikes continue in Gaza. Yesterday, at least 10 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces in clashes across the West Bank.
So, you note, and I watched the whole clip, they don't talk about why there's conflict. They don't talk about what happened with all of those rockets going to Israel. Now, you can come up with 1,000 excuses, and people do. They say, well, Israel's an apartheid state, which it's not, which is an insult to all of the South Africans who actually had to go through apartheid. You could not be any part of the government. You were considered a second-class citizens. There is, in the 5 branches, I think, of the Knesset, I think. Yes. I'm not, this isn't my history, but I know that there are at least 1/5, I think, of the branch is actually Muslim or Arab. Yes. In the government of Israel. So it's not an apartheid state. Jews comprise the majority, 73, I think, %. But then there's a large Muslim and a large Arab and Christian, other groups there. Now, if you say, well, I don't think that a country should have a religious state, fine. But look at all of the Arab states. They're all Muslim states. Jews are not allowed in those countries. Right. And they flee those countries. When I was in college, the people that lived next door in my dorm were from Iran. And I was wondering, what are Iranians doing at San Diego State? Well, they happen to be Jewish Iranians, and they could not stay there because they would have been killed. And I had the same thing happen with Christian Iranians that had to leave because of their faith. You can live peacefully in Israel if you're a Christian, a Sikh, a Muslim, and they do, and they're even part of the government. So
that's all Israel wants.
Yeah.
Let's coexist in peace and harmony, do what you want to do.
When it comes to our government, it's not just the media. You've got the people who are the big names in the Democratic Party. You've got the AOCs and the Rashid Tlaibs and the Ilhan Omars. The latter two I just mentioned are anti-Semitic. They've said anti-Semitic things. So they try to make this moral equivalency, and they support, they won't say it out loud, but they support groups like Hamas.
Yes.
They'll just say they support the Free Palestine. Again, this is all fine and good. It goes deeper than that. It's a very complicated situation. Again, if you want more information that dives deeper into the history, right here I'll put a card. Go on to this. This is where Ben Shapiro actually, because he's more of a scholar on this, and he can and listen to that or watch that, and you can find out more about the conflict.
Right. And I hate to point fingers, but this current administration that we have now supposedly gave $150 million during that stimulus package. We gave $150 million to Palestine. Did they use that for COVID relief? That's what the money was earmarked for. But it seems that like they use that money to build and construct weapons of mass destruction, which are now being shot toward Israel. Like Brian was just saying about some of the major players in the Democratic Party. It's like they want to see this. When Trump was in office, we had the peace, we had the accords, and things were peaceful. But now that he's been out, and we're not doing this a pro-Trump versus Biden thing, but if you just take a step back and take your emotion out of it, when Trump was in office, we had accomplished something that said, well, you can't accomplish peace over there. It's impossible. He did it. Yeah. And now that he's been out of office, it's like now they're back at war again. Something happened. The speed of the group is dictated by the speed of the leader, and we have new leadership. Okay, let's get out of the Middle East. Okay, if you're into geopolitics, you can dive into that. Again, Ben has he talks about that. He's got some good historical, and Dennis Prager has a great couple clips on that. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about what's going on here. What's going on here are people sitting eating at a restaurant in New York and in LA, and they're being attacked. Why? Not because they're pro-Israel, because they're Jewish. Just because they're Jewish. It's absolute anti-Semitic hate crimes, and most of your mainstream media is not picking it up. But I'm going to bring up some statistics, but before we do that, here's some clips.
There is a full-on brawl that broke out. This is in Times Square. Yesterday, they threw like an actual explosive in the Diamond District. They went to a restaurant. They started spitting on Jewish diners. And you are seeing people on the left look the other way. This is not being covered in the mainstream media.
So again, that's from a clip of Ben Shapiro.
Does this remind you of last summer?
Yeah, exactly. The reason that I played Ben's clip is because Ben doesn't hide his Judaism. He wears that yarmulke out, and he makes a statement because people say, aren't you afraid? Why don't you take that off? Cedric can't take off the color of his skin. Ben believes in wearing that as part of his religion. He's not going to give in because of terrorist-like activity.
Yeah. And he should be allowed to.
Yeah. So here's another clip. This is closer to home because we're only, about 35, 40 miles from Los Angeles?
Dining outdoors. A witness recorded the video. She says she was sitting outdoors with her girlfriends having dinner last night when a caravan of Palestinian supporters were driving by, waving flags from their cars and shouting at diners. She says a group of men in a few cars jumped out of their cars and asked the patrons who of them were Jews. The witness says 2 patrons said they were Jews, and protesters started to beat them.
So again,
and this is sad because I grew up less than 5 miles from this area. And like the city of Los Angeles, now it's Palestinians versus Jews. Bad enough LA has the whole red versus blue. Yeah. It's like, when does it all stop?
So I'm going to bring up something lighter since this is such a serious topic. Cedric likes to go to this place called the Beer and Wine Garden. And there's a place called the Saddle Sore. And my wife misunderstood a sign that was up above on the bar. It said no colors. And she thought it was an anti-racial thing. And I had to say, honey, they don't want any gang-affiliated colors. Otherwise, Cedric would never be able to go into the beer and wine. And he's the one who told me about the Saddle Sore. So I said, honey, that's not an anti-black.
Oh, jeez. Hopefully you're all laughing at that.
Oh, God. You gotta laugh at this stuff.
And I'm going to split them out really quick. And I know Brian asked me this question right before we started filming. It's like, why is this happening it's halfway across the world. Why is it happening in Los Angeles and other cities across the world? Whether you are Protestant, Catholic, agnostic, atheist, there's going to come a point in time where Jerusalem, or specifically Israel, is going to be the center of everything that's going on in the world. It is just prophetic. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, it's up to you. But they're batting 1,000 so far with everything that they've said. There's going to come a time when Jerusalem and Israel is going to be the center of everything that's going on. That's why it kind of spills over halfway across the world in cities like LA and New York.
Just to get deeper into it, because it's something that, as I was kind of going down the rabbit hole on this, I brought up the FBI statistics. I believe this is from 2018, 2019. And right there on the that left-hand column is the number of fill in the blank, anti-white, 666. Oh,
ooh.
I guess.
Speaking of
we are
biblical
the
references,
devil.
white devil.
Oh my God! I know you guys are going to use that now. Anti-black or African American, 1,930. So you can see, obviously, much more hate crime against in the FBI statistics against black people. And then if you look down below, when you look at religion, nobody even comes close to the anti-Jewish hate crimes. So 953 acts of violence against Jews in 2019, I think this was. And you can look at this whole chart. I'll leave it there. But then if you look down at anti-Muslim, right there, it's 176. So it's not even close. But it gets even more interesting. And you have to take in, just like we do with COVID or we do with crimes, you have to take it as a percentage of the population of that group. So here you can see the numbers are just broken down here, and it's by group. So again, and this was 2018, I know that. So it was 2,426 hate crimes against blacks, 940 against Jews, and 236 against Muslims. And you look at that, it's like numbers, what does that mean? But when you do it as a percentage of the population, I have a nice chart here for you. And this is what surprised me. So as a percentage of the population, so if you count how many per 100,000 people, because there are not that many Jews in the United States, there's over 2.5 times more hate crimes against Jews than even against blacks, and twice as much as against Muslims. Now, if you watch the news, would you know that?
No.
What do we always hear about when we talk about hate crimes? It's always against the black community.
Against blacks, yeah. And actually, Asians are attacked a lot, but we talked about this. Usually they're attacked by blacks, so they don't bring that up.
But their numbers, if you look at that chart that I put on before, Asians, still it's a very low number. Mm-hmm. This just surprised me because you never see this on the news. You'd never see this, right? Nobody thinks, other than when you have these problems with Palestinians and the Israelis, you never hear about hate crimes against Jews, yet that was from 2018. That's not now. That's not during this conflict. That's back when there was relative peace.
Right.
Yet the number one victim of hate crime, and it's not even close, it's over 2 times against the next highest, but you never hear about it. And my question here, my rhetorical question to you, because Cedric jokes around this, it's like, and we can joke and I can laugh. Jews run the media. So my question is, if Jews run the media, why wouldn't this be covered? So, I mean, that's a lie, by the way. Jews, yes, they have a high percentage in Hollywood.
Right.
They do not run the media. If they did, you would see more of these stories because they are 2.5 times more likely to be victims of hate crimes than any other group. So for those out there that may be white supremacists watching our show for some reason, maybe they're self-hating white supremacists.
Right.
They have to give a touch of some Cedric and Brian. That's just my rhetorical question to everybody. You hear racial slurs all the time or anti-Jewish slurs. We just let it go because, what's one of the favorite Jewish
sayings?
Not sayings, but kind of physical attributes.
Oh.
That's how our attitude is.
I was going to say something about the nose, but
yeah, well,
I didn't say
I
that.
do have that. But anyway, so we just wanted to educate you a little more. Again, if you really want a good education about this, it may be a little biased because Ben Shapiro's Jewish, but he really does a good job.
He's really objective, though.
Yeah, and that schools, unfortunately, all the things we talk about with the schools and the bias and the anti-racism and the critical race theory, those same places are indoctrinating these kids about the Palestinian conflict, and all they're getting taught is that the Israelis are an apartheid state, which they're not. If they would dig just a little deeper, instead of just going to these rallies or these seminars that are on one side, like the Ibrahim F. Kendi's and Louis Farrakhan, who feeds into this stuff, you're not going to get it. And again, if the Jews ran the media, you would get more of it, but you don't, because they don't.
Well, to draw a comparison, there's a group there called the Palestinian Youth Movement, where, like Brian was just saying earlier, they take young kids and they indoctrinate them with what's going on in Palestine, and they're saying that Israel is evil. This is no different than what Hitler did after World War II with the Hitler Youth. And so what Hitler did said, I'm not going to try and convince the older people to think my way of thinking. I have the youth. They're more impressionable. I can corrupt them, I can indoctrinate them, and I have a whole new regime coming up once the older generation dies. That's what the Palestinian Youth Movement is all about as well.
Yeah, and then why would they take that movement in the United States and turn it into an anti-Jew movement or an anti-Semitic movement? That's in the Middle East. That's a half a world away. But they're taking it and they're bringing it on our shores, and they're creating this hate. And you've seen from the clips that we just played that it's spilling into the street for no other reason. Just like we say, you should not judge somebody by the color of their skin. Well, why are they judging people just because they have a religion that may be the same religion as something halfway around the world? And they're beating them. They're assaulting, and it's just going to escalate. And it's being promoted. It's being promoted by our institutions, and it's just sad. Anyway, so that's enough of the heavy news. Now we got some good news. Remember, we've been asking for a video comment now for a while, and we said the first person that sends it is going to get the
mug,
swag of their choice.
Hat, shirt. So
we're happy to report that, and we'll give you her real name in a second, but she goes by, and you might have to just spell it because...
Tcestg5. I'm assuming it's the letters of, I remember her family, and 5. TCEESTG5.
So, but her real name is Candace.
Yes.
And Candace sent us this.
So I just think cultural appropriation is a horrible word. It's stupid. It makes no sense. Cultural appreciation is a better word. I appreciate all cultures, all types of things. I don't know if it has to do with me being a Gemini or not, but I love to just research different cultures and find out as much as I can about things and incorporate parts of that into my life. I think that's amazing. I think that's an appreciation of cultures, and no one should be offended by that. We should all do that more often.
So I guess I should have mentioned that was from an old video we did on cultural appropriation.
And we'll put the link in the description box of that video that we did months ago on cultural appropriation, and I love her term, cultural appreciation. I love that.
What's interesting is I know at least one of the other videos that was sent was another Gemini.
Yes, Brian and I are Geminis. If you didn't see the last video, my birthday is coming up June 3rd. His is June 8th. Yep. And I think we're two of like 15 people that we know. At the day of this filming, today is your sister's birthday.
Yeah.
So it's
a lot of Geminis.
A lot of Geminis, a lot of double-minded people out there.
Well, we want to thank Candace for being the first to send us a video comment. And Candace, we've reached out to you on the email. We need to know what you would like, either a hat, a mug, a shirt. I know people want It's a Damn Shame shirts.
Yes.
Let us know what you want. Send it to us in an email with your address so we can just ship it directly to you.
Right. And the comments, if you don't have to comment on a specific video, you may have a comment about anything that you want me and Brian to answer. Not that our opinion is that important, but like whatever you want to know what's going on in the world, maybe something that's going on in our lives. If it's too personal, we won't answer it. But just whatever you want to say, send it, and hopefully we can put it on our next video.
Yep.
And as of tomorrow, one of our other subscribers, I don't have her real name, she goes by Miraculous Ladybug, I believe out in Ohio. Happy birthday, because tomorrow will be her birthday. So happy birthday to you, and thank you for always watching our videos and taking the time to comment.
Yep. All right. Again, if you have more questions on the Israel-Palestine conflict or just about the anti-Semitic stuff going on, go check out Ben Shapiro. Obviously, you know he's Jewish. He wears it on his head. And if you don't know, Dennis Prager is also Jewish. He has some good 5-minute videos on the conflict, and it's good to know because you're only going to get, like I played you the clip from ABC News or whatever that news outlet was. They make it sound like it's just an equal conflict. Again, it'd be like Cedric fighting Tyson. It's silly to compare these things.
Geminis are stupid. I could do that. Not in our right mind. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and share our videos with everyone you know. Until next time, please be good to each other. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian.